Hello and welcome to Divine Downloads, formerly Practical Magic Musings. I'm your host, spiritual mentor, guide, speaker, author, all the things, Cassandra Bodzak. And today's episode is really just an info episode. So this is for any of you that are curious about my Miracle Mastermind. I did this for the first time with my Divinely You program, where I just decided to give you guys a little kind of like podcast heart to heart about what the program's about, who it's for, all the 411 as if we were like on a phone call together. And you guys loved it so much with Divinely You. And I got so much great feedback saying that, please do this more. It's super easy for us to listen to and understand and download. And so many of the people that actually signed up for Divinely You found it very helpful. So I'm going to make it a thing, and it makes a lot of sense. I understand you guys are already here listening to the podcast. And for me, as you'll notice, if you go to any of my pages about my programs, there are lots of videos because I just believe that I articulate it, and my energetic transmission about what it is so much more important than any of the words on the page. I really believe that those of you who feel called to work with me feel the transmission, understand it's for you, get that yes in your soul, and then feel empowered to commit to it and sign up for the journey. So why not? So let's just talk about the Miracle Mastermind. Where to freaking begin? Oh my God. Oh my goddess, right? The A Course in Miracles has been a part of my journey, and I know I've shared this before in different ways, but I think it's important for you to know if you're considering embarking on a year-long journey with me on A Course in Miracles, my background in A Course in Miracles. So I have taught A Course in Miracles at various times, different workshops and different things that's come up. Some of you guys have noticed, or remember, I should say, me from Periscope when I was doing Miracle Mornings. I did some Miracle Mornings on YouTube as well. And it's kind of been this ever persistent thing that's popped up that, to be quite frank with you, because I don't hold anything back, especially you guys on the podcast know all the things. I always pushed down because I wasn't really sure how it fit in my business. And so I'd get these urges because I've been doing A Course in Miracles daily for 7 years now. It's been a completely transformational part of my spiritual practice, and it has informed the way I speak to so many of the spiritual concepts that I speak to, and so many of the Instagram posts you guys read, or blog posts, or talks that I've given, or workshops. A Course in Miracles is my foundation. It is kind of my lineage, so to speak, And so a lot of times people ask you, what's your lineage? And, if you do Kundalini and you identify with that, it would be like Kundalini. If you're a Hatha yoga teacher, it might be Hatha yoga. If you are Buddhist, it could be Buddhist. If you are into transcendental meditation, you might not consider that a lineage, but that is kind of like your primary spiritual practice. And so for me, it has been A Course in Miracles. And I was raised Catholic, and we'll get back to that. Because I know one of the big questions around A Course in Miracles is, how does this interact if I currently have a religion? And so I'm going to answer that towards the end of the podcast with some other frequently asked questions. But A Course in Miracles has been my lineage from my spiritual awakening. So when I first hit my knees, when I really, started surrendering and asking for guidance, when I was in my dark night of the soul, my bathroom floor moment, that was when Return to Love and A Course in Miracles came in for me. And A Return to Love is essentially Marianne Williamson's memoir on A Course in Miracles that I had been given when I was in college by this friend who was a grad student that could see that I was already like into this kind of spiritual realm and thought I would love the book. And I remember reading it, and I got so triggered because of the use of God and Jesus and all this language, and it reminded me so much of my Catholic upbringing that I was still digesting and figuring out like how it sat with me and what it meant to me, that I wasn't ready for it. And so I put it on my shelf, but I kept it because when it was one of those like treasured books that was like highlighted and bookmarked and all those things, that I was like, I can't lose this book. It's, it's going to be a gem one day. I knew it. So mind you, like 5 years later, probably at this point, have my breakdown, and I just get this hit. I gotta go grab that Return to Love book, that book that I had been given that I couldn't read at the time. And I remember I read it and I just like devoured it. I was severely upset and sad at the time because of my little brother's diagnosis. And so I was spending sometimes full days in bed, feeling very sorry for myself and life and in general, and just not knowing how to function. And so I literally just like devoured it and was like, I need to go get this A Course in Miracles book. This is part of my path. I'm committed to doing this. And so that was kind of what ignited everything for me. And for the Miracle Mastermind, I am recommending, I'm giving, if you sign up for the mastermind, I'm sending you a Return to Love if you don't already own it, because I want that to be, I think it's a really great digestible companion to A Course in Miracles and a lot of the big concepts in the book that can get you really excited for A Course in Miracles, because A Course in Miracles is an undertaking. It is very much, I think, on par with like reading the Bible, right? It's written in iambic pentameter, like Shakespeare, right? And the reason why I think this mastermind is going to be so epic is because I wish that I had something like that when I was going through my journey. I feel like it would have expedited the miracles that the Course had for me, even to a whole nother level, if I had, one, the accountability of someone sharing that with me every day, two, a community where I could share my miracles or share where I was blocked or share where I was feeling resistant, and then three, those weekly Zoom calls that we're going to have where I'll be able to go over some of the bigger concepts in the text, as well as break down whatever came up for people in the lessons that week that maybe they're trying to sit with or they haven't quite figured out, and really make it something that is approachable and actionable in your day-to-day life, right? Because the thing about the Course that I think why it took me so many times through it, and even to this point, why I kind of love it, why I love it / it frustrates me sometimes, is because every single time I read it, I haven't, like, it's like something clicks even further. Every single time I go through the workbook lessons, I embody them on a deeper level. But I will say, after just that first year of going through the Course, my life changed dramatically. And this is part of why I'm so excited about the Miracle Mastermind, because I have experienced firsthand in my life the power that this work has to literally like flip your life. Like, just, this is just being super real. When I found the Course, I was lost. I had been an actress for years. I'd gone to school for acting. I was doing okay in acting. I was getting like small parts here and there. I made some good money in acting. I still had like a waitressing job to fulfill the days that I didn't have anything to do acting wise, but I wasn't feeling on purpose. I wasn't feeling joy anymore in life. I was really wondering what's the point of things. I was constantly anxious in my relationship, constantly stressed out or overwhelmed about my schedule or something else that was going on. And I was just feeling really, and then when this crisis hit, when I really hit my rock bottom, I really didn't know how to go on. I was really feeling lost and confused and completely in a fear headlock, right? I was completely in a fear headlock. And, what does that look like? That can manifest in a lot of ways, right? It's when we're panicking about money. It could be when we're panicking about our health. It could be when we feel like there's no one out there for us, right? It's when when we get into our lower self, right? Or not our higher self, when we're not connecting, when we're not feeling aligned, when we're not experiencing miracles, which is miracles occur naturally, right? Miracles are meant to occur naturally. Right? When we are willing, when we are, when we have shown up for them. And that wasn't my experience of life at that point. Fast forward a year, what had happened during the Course was I started naturally learning how to lean towards love. I started naturally knowing how to find my joy, how to follow, and this wasn't in a very, I think this wasn't in a very like, you do this way, right? It was like, so A Course in Miracles, what it is in the workbook is you pretty much have like a sentence that you meditate on. It's a concept, like a page or two that you read, and then you meditate on it. And some of them you'll have to kind of take throughout your day, and it'll kind of change the way you see your day. And so as I started doing this, I started noticing the way I looked at things changed. The way I looked at the way certain things happened changed. The way I made my decisions changed. The way I spent my energy changed. And so I started my own vegan cupcake business. I put more energy into my blog. I started recording videos, cooking videos at the time, because I had this blog on the side forever, but never really thought anything could come of it. And even at this point, I still wasn't thinking anything could come of it. I was just in this space where I was fully dedicated to living in the light and fully dedicated to being in my joy and being happy, right? And not allowing this sadness and stressfulness and anxiousness and this life that I didn't even think was, was kind of stagnating to happen anymore, right? And then through that, what happened is literally one of the lessons from the workbook for the teachers in A Course in Miracles is that when the teacher is ready, the students appear. So I got ready to be the teacher, let's say, in my health coaching business, in my thing, and very unconsciously, right? It was just because I was naturally focusing on that. I was pouring into that purposeful work of mine. And so people started asking me if they could work with me. I'm not even kidding. I started my business as a result of the demand. Okay. And then I started doing that. And then I started like exploring that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go to nutrition school. I'm going to get certified. I'm going to try these different ways of working with people. And I was in this space of infinite possibilities and abundance, right? Which is, I think, the essential part of the mindset in which the Course teaches, right? To be in that space where anything could be a miracle, where there is infinite possibility, right? Where we're constantly opening to that shift in perception so that we can see things with our divine sight. And it was through that then my blog started blowing up, my coaching business started going, and then I even ended up getting a call from the producers at ABC to be on the show called The Taste with Anthony Bourdain. And that was like a whole different level. It was like within the course of a year, my life had completely changed. And then I met a man on that show that I entered in, which was probably one of the healthiest relationships of my adult life till that point, up until that point, right? I was accessing this whole new level of relationship with someone. I was accessing this whole new level of career for myself and this whole new level of purpose that I'd never even known before. And on top of it, a whole new level of happiness, right? Which ultimately was the most important, because if you have ever been in such a dark place, it's when you truly realize how happiness is the most valuable commodity. Because when you have happiness, when you have optimism, when you have that mindset of potential, you can figure everything out, right? It's when you don't have that, you don't even have the motivation to look outside. You're so consumed with stress and overwhelm and anxiety and second guessing yourself, right? That we become paralyzed. And so just in a year, all of that stuff happened, right? While I was doing the Course in Miracles, and I stayed with it. And for those who have followed me along my journey, you have seen that things have only grown every year, and I've evolved into the teacher I am today, which finally led me to the place of being like, how much longer am I going to ignore this call to teach this text that has been so transformative for me, that I live by, that is my lifesaver, I want to say, right? And I truly believe that these principles and this way of looking at things can change your life. I know it can. And that's why I was so excited to just finally just be like, I'm doing this flippin' Miracle Mastermind. I'm owning it. 2020, the year of perfect vision. And that's truly what kind of hit me. This is the year of perfect vision. This is the year of us looking at things with divine sight. This is the year of miracles, right? And that is accessible to us. That is ripe for the taking for us. And I really feel honored to be your guide on this journey. And so the Miracle Mastermind itself will be a year-long thing. will start in February. You will have, just some light reading from the front of the text every week to do about a paragraph or so a day, just to kind of get you into the text. And then you'll get daily WhatsApp messages from me with the audio of the lesson and a picture of the lesson. So while you will also have the book, you'll always have those as well for when you're traveling. So there'll be multiple ways you can make sure you get your lesson done that day. And then we're also going to have a WhatsApp group where we'll be able to share miracles and reflections and things that are coming up, and weekly Zoom calls. So these weekly Zoom calls are going to be where I'm going to help you not only break down the bigger concepts in the text, which are going to be super important and help you actually digest it and really be able to use it in your life, but also be able to see what's coming up for you. I say this with all my clients and in all of my programs. When you enter into that sacred relationship with a coach, with a program, with something like this, where you're being held in a container for a certain amount of time, I truly believe that the divine, universe, soul, God, then presents whatever you need to work on in your life to you in such a way that you can utilize that container to transform it. And so it is very important to me that you will have that space to show up and say, hey, we've started this and my money stuff's coming up. We've started this and my romance stuff started coming up. We started this and my body stuff started coming up, so that we can then take these principles, take these concepts that we're learning and we're working on, and actually apply it to those specific situations that are coming up for the members of the group. So one of the questions that I've got that I think is important to address is, okay, well, what if I have a different spiritual background, or what if I have a different religion? What if I'm Jewish, or I'm Catholic, or I'm Christian, or I'm Protestant, or I'm Buddhist, or whatnot, whatever your primary religion is? I am a big believer. So first of all, Marianne Williamson, who teaches A Course in Miracles, is Jewish. I was raised Catholic. I truly believe that you can use it to enrich your other primary spiritual beliefs, as well as if you don't have a primary spiritual practice, you can interpret it. You can use it for those higher level concepts as well. So maybe I'm not articulating that perfectly, but A Course in Miracles uses a lot of texts, a lot of religious texts, as far as God, Jesus, Holy Spirit, Son of God, right? So the reason that why I think it's so important to do it in this context, right, is because this is a book that was written, that was channeled a while ago, right? And so you're going to get to go through it with me in a way that I can break it down for you in modern language, right? And I think that that's really important, because we'll be able to look at these concepts for their broader learning and their broader perspective and listening, and not get caught up. I think that's one of the hardest things to do if you're going it alone, is that it's so easy to get bogged down by the text. It's so easy to, get bogged down by a word because you're not right. You can shift God for love or source or universe or whatnot in the entire book if you want. Right? And likewise, if you relate to God, then you keep God. That's great. It's going to be in alignment with your, a lot of your opinions on God as it is. And a lot of this journey, same thing with Jesus, right? Jesus comes up, and you can look at Jesus as an ascended master. You can look at Jesus as someone who anchored Christ consciousness on the planet for us. You can look at Jesus in the Catholic version of looking at Jesus, right, as the literal Son of God. Right? But the messages of the Course, right, and the way it uses those words as a learning tool, will be able to transcend all of that, right? And so, and again, I'm going to be, and I know that I'm going to be a big instrument in that, in helping translate some of the metaphors in the Course to what they actually mean in a way that you can digest it, which is like why I said I think it's so important to do a group like this, and why I feel so passionate about guiding it, is because this book is a literal flippin' gem. It is a gem. It is a life-changing metaphysical text that I think is getting tossed to the side sometimes, or not taken seriously enough, because we get so triggered by this language, because we don't understand the metaphors, because we're not fully soaking it in. So we put it away and we lose all of its magic, all of its power, all of the potential it has to completely transform our lives, which is really teaching these higher level concepts, like I said, at the core of the course is transforming a fear system, a consciousness of the world that is based on fear and scarcity of lack, to a consciousness of love, abundance, and infinite potential. Which, if you look, whether you're Jewish or Christian or wherever your primary other religion lies, is at the core of all major religions, right? Is helping us return to our divine self, to our most Christ-like self, to our most God-like self, to our most, holy self, whatever we want to call it. All major religions are helping us return to that faith, to that strength in something higher, to that connection that we all have to the divine within us, so that we can make, the highest level consciousness decisions for our life and how we go about living our life. Okay, so it's very much in alignment with that. On the contrary to that, if you don't have a religion, or you don't relate to your religion anymore, perfect, don't even worry at all. Then I think one of the beautiful things that I know I will be holding space for during this year-long journey is allowing you guys to really develop your personal relationship with your higher power, and allowing you to be in that space of really feeling what this connection feels like for you. But like I said, I truly believe at the heart of the course is really, it's like a psychological rewiring to be able to look with that higher vision, that divine vision, to be able to connect it. And the language in which you use to go about that can be different for all of us, but the base that's there in the course will give us that strong foundation in which, if you come up with resistance, or you're having trouble kind of figuring out how to place something based on what's going on for you, that's what I'll be there for. That's what we'll be able to work through together, so that you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, which I think is so, 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 so important. Another thing that came up was for some of my international ladies, because we already have a girl I just sent her from the Netherlands. So I just sent her our A Course in Miracles book and Return to Love. So I should know, because I just typed it into Amazon. So, what she'll be doing, and what other international ladies in my previous groups do, is that you can always email me questions for our live calls if you have them, and I'll respond to you live on the call. Or you can send in a video and I'll show it on the call, and then you can watch the replay. So you'll be a part of our discussion, and your hot seat questions will get answered. And the times, which a lot of you guys were asking, so it's looking like Wednesday right now. And what I'm thinking of doing, which has worked well, I think, for Divinely You right now, is alternating morning and evening times. So this way, mornings will work better for some people, evenings will work better for some people, but everyone always has at least every other week with their preference, and it gives the most people the option to make at least, like I said, 50% of the calls. The calls are really there to support you, and the way I look at it is like there's this container that we're holding, and different things are going to come up for different people at different times. And so the calls are when you may have weeks that go by where you're kind of floating along, where you're just kind of, receiving and receiving and receiving, listening to what's going on. And then you might get hit by a curveball, or you might have something really big that comes up. And now that week is the time where you really want to, pop on and ask me a bunch of questions and take some of that time on the call. And that's what it's there for. It's there so that there's always that space, so that whoever needs to talk, whoever has that question, and then those times when we don't, I'll also be using those calls, those Zoom calls, to share the concepts of the text, the front of the book, as well as the concepts of the teacher's manual as we get through the year. Because as you graduate from the Miracle Mastermind, you'll also be an official teacher of A Course in Miracles, because you've completed the 365-day workbook, which is all that is required for you to be a teacher of it, and for you to incorporate that in whatever coaching practice you have right now. If you have that, or if you're a yoga teacher, anything like that. If that's not relevant, then maybe it's not relevant, but that's a pretty cool thing if you do. You never know where you'll be in a year after doing this work. You never know what you might be inspired to be teaching or doing after doing this kind of deep work. And so I think and I lost my track on that, guys. But yeah, so we'll be working through that. And also on the Zoom calls, I'm going to take advantage to do, to dive deep into different specifics. So, okay, let's talk about A Course in Miracles as it relates to our career. Let's talk about A Course in Miracles as it relates to our love life. Let's talk about A Course in Miracles as it relates to tough, parental relationships. Let's talk about A Course in Miracles that relates to health and healing. So we're really going to get a chance throughout the year to really look at how these principles of shifting from a place of fear to love, of moving our consciousness, affects all these different areas of our lives, and how they can apply to our relationships, how they can apply to our career, how they can apply to our finances, how they can apply to our health. So that will also be a big part of those calls as well, where we will always have that interaction. The other thing I'm super excited about is I'm going to do 2 WhatsApp groups, and maybe this is getting TMI for the podcast, but I feel like we're chatting now, so you're listening. And I know, can we just say, if you're listening up until this point, I know you want to do it. Don't let it stop you, okay? Invest in this. This is going to flip and change your life. And this is way cheaper than working with me one-on-one. And it's a great way to get some really intensive coaching. I'm literally going to be your running buddy for a year. Right? And whatever comes up, if you've been in one of my programs before, nothing's off limits. You're welcome to ask me anything. When you're in my little cocoon, you are in my little cocoon. And I'm here for you. And we've had, I'm in our business, the business program I did, we talked about everything. We talked about, people's love lives. We talked about, health, everything came up, right? Because this is about life. This is about having spiritual guidance and coaching on life for an entire year in this context of this super sacred, miraculous book that we will be approaching and having that daily practice in. We'll also be having a WhatsApp group where I'm going to separate them out. So you have one WhatsApp group that's just the audios and the text from me, so that you can always, if you fall behind and you need to go back, you can catch up really easily without having to sort through a bunch of different comments. And then we'll have a second one, which will be more of a comment thread where people can share their miracles, share what's coming up for them, let people know that they're doing the work, or however we want to interact on that will be more of a social thread. So you'll have that even if you are in another time zone as well, where you'll still feel very, very much part of this group. So those are the 2 big questions. The other thing that comes up is around finances. And here's, go listen to that podcast episode on tough decisions coming from a place of fear or love. Here's the thing. If you truly feel called to do this work, and you invest the money and the time and the commitment, which is just as much as the money, to showing up for this year, I have no doubt that, that will be reciprocated in your life, right? One of the lessons in A Course in Miracles is to give is to receive. So when we actually give out that energy to something, we receive it back. It is a universal law. So I want to ask you, if this is something that's really calling your soul, if this is something that you feel like could be really transformative for you this year, that you make a different choice, that you make a choice that makes you rise to the level of this commitment. How would you have to rise in order to be able to say yes to this level of commitment? Would you have to rise in your time commitment? Would you have to rise in your financial commitment? Would you maybe have to reorganize your budget? Would you maybe have to, take on a part-time job or get side hours? Would you have to maybe be more unapologetic in selling your beautiful work? Would you have to be more unapologetic in standing in your worth and asking for a raise to your boss? How might this extra financial commitment and energetic commitment actually allow you to rise to a new level of you in 2020? Because I can tell you that where you are right now is based on what you've always done. And in order to get to a different place, you need to do something different. So especially this goes for those of you guys that is a habit of seeing something and saying it's too expensive, or I would really love to do it, but it's just, right? I get you. I've been there myself at times in my life, but that place only keeps perpetuating that place. And so if you want to get out of that place, you need to choose a new story. You need to say yes and figure it out, right? You need to say yes and ask yourself how you're going to rise to that occasion. How are you going to commit even further, right? Because I truly believe when we invest our energy, when we invest our finances, we also show up for that work more. How many times have you said, I'm going to get through this book by myself, whether it was A Course in Miracles, whether it was some other day, 40-day meditation journey, or whatever you were doing, and you didn't because you had no skin in the game. You had no accountability. You had no money on the line. You had no skin in the game. And so that's what's different. When you allow yourself, when I first started investing in a coach, you freaking do that stuff when you're paying for it every month. Right? I invest in a pretty expensive gym membership. I use my gym membership. When I was investing in like a $20 a month gym membership, I never went to the gym. And it's because it calls me to rise to a new level of showing up. Right? If your expenses are a certain level in your business, it's calling you to rise to a certain level of showing up in your business in order to make that work. So I want to encourage you, for those of you who are feeling your financial fears try to chokehold you against this, to make a new choice, to choose differently, to experience your very first miracle by signing up for the Miracle Mastermind and saying yes to yourself. Because I think that is so, so, so important. And so I'll leave you on that note. I'm ecstatic to begin this journey with my miracle workers. And I hope, especially if you've listened up until this point, I hope you say yes to yourself, because I know your soul's niggling you. I know you want this. There's no way you would listen to this whole podcast if you weren't a whole body and soul heaven's yes. Honor yourself. Rise to the occasion. Join the Miracle Mastermind. Allow me and A Course in Miracles to literally transform your life in 2020, because you deserve it. You deserve to have a life full of miracles. You deserve to have a life that lights you up. You deserve to have all of that goodness that you imagine. On that note, I will see you soon. Hopefully, I'll see you in the mastermind.